Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Chapter 1, Text 1, no, Volume 1, Chapter 1, Text 44. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ahaṁ varākaḥ syāṁ dātuṁ śaknomi kiyat vaibhavaṁ vartate kim me bhagavad-bhajanaṁ kutaḥ. Who am I but a most wretched person? How much charity am I able to give? What opulence do I have? And how have I ever reciprocated with the Lord in devotional service? Purport: any true devotee of Krishna considers himself insignificant, thinking himself one of the countless jivas who are mere sparks of God's splendor. The devotee is sorry for having foolishly rebelled against his creator, and reflecting on this rebellion, he thinks his relative influence among other fallen jivas means little. The Brahmin sends Narada to the city, to the southern king. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaibhavaṁ Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So greetings from Navanalachula Mandir in Brick, New Jersey. My little bhajan kutir. Before I just put it in context, just one point that just came to my mind. This Brahmin, and it says a true devotee, thinks himself insignificant. But it's not a contradiction. You don't have to feel worthless if you're insignificant, if you're loved by someone with significance. And the example would be a small child in the mother's arms. They feel a value because they're loved. They don't feel a value because they have significance. And I think this resolves the quandary sometimes between that humility has to be a lack of self-esteem. It's just that your esteem is not that I'm the controller and enjoy it. Your esteem is that I'm the servant of God. Not only the servant of God, but Gopi Bhartu Padakamala Dasa Dasa Anudasa. So anyway, just a small context. Every time it should be smaller. Narada is feeling ecstasy in Kumbh Mela, and his heart's overwhelmed by the experience of being in the best place at the best time with the best people in front of the Supreme Lord in the form of Madhava deity. And he's feeling this type, that this is the Brahmin, but he's feeling this type of humility and where you're seeing God everywhere and feeling this happy small. And it creates a mood that gives you a lens. And you're seeing through your emotions, not your intellect. It's just like they say, to preach, the uttamadhikari has to come down to madhyam. In other words, on the platform of uttam and just being overwhelmed with devotional feelings, you're just seeing Krishna everywhere. You're seeing as his servant. You're seeing Krishna in everyone's heart. And in that mood of service, in the mood of intense prema. Prema is a desire. And whenever you have a desire, with that desire comes a feeling of lack. I desire food, I lack food. I desire food, I lack food. I desire God, I lack God. So somehow or other, as the hunger and prema increases, one doesn't feel like he has a drop of prema. And it creates a lens. That's why the uttam comes to madhyam. He comes to the platform. He has to forcibly come to the platform of intellect to make discrimination to do his service. Prabhupada always had to come to the platform of intellect to instruct his disciples. Although his consciousness in heart, and sometimes you would see that. He would see his disciples sent by Bhakti Siddhanta. I remember one time Srila Dhanurdhara Maharaj came to the Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he used to come for Balaram Jayanti. And it's not Balaram Jayanti. Jayanti is an astrological figuration. It's Krishna Jayanti. It's Balaram Purnima. He used to come for Balaram Purnima. And, he would see, first of all, some of us were going to him and he was seeing these dynamic, intelligent people, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Giriraj Swami and Burijan Prabhu and Mother Jagatarini and Parthasarthi and different people. And he was enlivened to preach. So he would see actually the quality of Prabhupada's disciples. And then he'd come to the temple and he just said, I wish I could serve my guru like you. So devotion creates that lens. It's not analytical. For preaching, it's analytical. But in one's personal spiritual life and one's personal spiritual practice, if he has any purity in his heart, purity gives you the vision of impurity. You've had a clean glass of water. I gave the example. You see every speck of dirt. So pure. So in that lens, he sees the Brahmin and who's the Acharya, who's evidently very powerful of all assets. But he can see by his level of worship, and even at the end of his worship, at the beginning of his worship, how he honors all the sannyasis, all the Brahmins. He's honoring everyone very humbly. And then at the end, he feeds everyone, even the jackals and the outcasts. And then he takes and his family takes. And then with true devotion in his heart, he looks at the deity. He looks at the deity that he's in the bank of the Triveni, and he's made an altar out of mud, and he's singing and playing instruments and dancing. without any upadi, material designation. I am Brahmin. I am Brahmin. And whatever your designation is, even give me, I'm a Prabhupada disciple. No material, no designation that puts him above anybody else. Wealth came naturally. There's nothing wrong with having wealth. That's people's karma. If the wealth comes naturally, so the wealth came to him naturally. It wasn't utsahan, it wasn't atyahar payasas. It wasn't that over endeavor. Whatever came, and a lot came. But he used it in Krishna's service. He used it in Krishna's service. So Narada could see, just watching him, by who he was and how he worshiped, and then who he respected. And at the very end, Narada's like looking. And when Narada is looking at him, he sees an amazing thing. He sees him fold his hands before the deity. I think it was a Shalagram Shila. And in a very humble way said that if there's any benefit from this worship, I want this benefit to go to you. Anya bilashita shunya. Gana karma dhyanavritam. He had no extraneous desires. That's what a pure devotee is, but to please Krishna. None. And then Narada came to him and said, you have so many assets, so many things, and they've come to you, but I can see that it's only for the worship of Krishna. You only worship Krishna. You only worship Krishna. This afternoon, I'll go to Long Beach Island. I'm not sure where it is, and I'll speak. There's a teacher training done by Brandy, who comes here on Tuesdays, and Bob Healy. They're doing a teacher training. And I spoke to Raghunath. Raghunath's so happy. They brought his son down to play Madunga. And his daughter drove everyone. They took all the kids down there to the beach. And then Raghunath was saying, because Bob is leading the teacher training, and he has a company and a successful company, but he says he could care less about that. But when you get a taste, a real taste for sharing Krishna consciousness, then other things really can seem pale in comparison. The example of Jamunacharya, when he was tasting Krishna consciousness, and he thought he was a king, and he used to enjoy his harem. When he thought of it, he just curled his lip and spit in distaste. Because there is an existential pleasure, not just a mental pleasure. There's a real pleasure that touches to the core of our hearts, and that is bhakti. And that's, I look at the list of people here, that's why we're all here. A drop of that fell in our head and convinced us that that's the experience and goal that we should dedicate ourselves to. So Narada just says, wow, this Brahmin is something. And he glorifies him, but the Brahmin, because he's very pure, he sees that everything is Krishna. Even if he has a position, he doesn't think I'm a Brahmin, but as a service to Krishna, I'm teaching people. He's not claiming anything for himself, even his possessions. He sees this as Krishna's. And it's very, very impressive. But that is his consciousness. So he doesn't identify it. He says avarākaḥ. Vara means excellent. Avarākaḥ. The opposite of excellent. I'm wretched. Because I'm here in this world. I hate to break the news to everybody here, but we're the minority of criminals in God's creation. So it's hard to become proud in the prison house. I mentioned in the last class that this cartoon I used to like to watch called Top Cat. And he was he was an alley cat. So, among all the garbage cans and Top Cat. At best, we're Top Cat, but we're still in the alley. We're still in that alley, Top Cat. Like this, he doesn't want to hear it. Bows his head. When you're happy like this, you don't want to be like this. You don't want to be like this. You just want to be the servant of the servant of the servant of Prabhupada, of the Vaishnavas, of his disciples. And we have to go for that. We have to actually endeavor for that. It's worth the sacrifice. We all make sacrifices. Well, why not make sacrifice for something that is neha bikamanasho sti pratyavayo navidyate swapya apyasya dharmasya trayato mahato bayat, which is permanent and connected to reality. So he says, me bhakta nehi hum. That's the extent of my Hindi. I am not a bhakta. I'm not a bhakta. And then he points to the king. The king is actually a bhakta. So then Narada goes to the king. And this is the template of this story. Each devotee does not want praise. They don't want the consciousness that pushes them to the center and away from the seva bhav. And that can easily happen. One time, this is it, we went to, not I didn't go to the Narayan March, but some leaders went to him because they were concerned with one of the followers of Prabhupada who had become a guru. And he was in Europe, he was getting very big palaces. And he was making these ostentatious high vyasasans. So I was there and they asked Narayan Maharaj a question. They said, if he's attached to the seat, if he's attached to sitting on the big seat, will he fall? And Srila Narayan Maharaj said, he's already fallen. He's already fallen. Anyway, each person, he doesn't want that. And he points to someone else. And then what will happen is you'll see the glories of the next person, and it's often gradated in terms of more and more intense levels of devotion. It's not always exactly gradated, but usually. Like, it's not much different than this Brahmin and the king. But anyway, it's so you'll see the person from the previous person's eyes. Like you'll see this king from the eyes of the Brahmin, who Narada glorifies, say, no, I'm not the king. So he's going to glorify that king. Then you'll see the king through the eyes of Narada when he comes there. And then again, you'll see the devotion of the king as he himself points to the next person who's higher. So, Kintu Dakshina Deshayo, next verse, Maharajo Virajate. So he Krishna Kripa Patram Yasya Deshe Suralaya. But in the southern county, there lives a great ruler whose kingdom has many temples of God and the demigods. He is a true recipient of Lord Krishna's mercy. And we'll see how impressive it is when someone has every reason to develop Ishvara Bhav, the abhiman, the self-conception that I'm better than others, and who has more facility to think that way than the king. Unbelievable. Imagine being a king. You have all the wealth and all the power. It's what every politician, every person, everyone here wants. All the power he has. And that means any women he wants, any praise he wants, any opulence he wants. It's something when they put those crowns on your head with all those jewels, and I pray for King Charles. I hope he's advanced and doesn't let it go to his head, that coronation, that ceremony. But one who's very, very advanced, as a service to Krishna, they take that. And in fact, that may be a great austerity for the person if he's a devotee. Like Raghunath Das Goswami, his father was the richest person in the country. That time, Bengal was a country because it was different kings had different countries in India. It wasn't one country. There may have been an emperor. So he had all that wealth. And it was an obstacle because it was keeping him in a situation that was very challenging for his devotion. But he had something higher, and that's the association of Haridas Thakur, and that's the holy name of Krishna. And his example, he proved it. He lived as the greatest renunciate. And a story I like, actually came to my Puri retreat. I won't mention her name because she gets embarrassed, but there was this lady, and she was married to one person in the family. The family were the Jewish oligarchs who put Putin in power, Abramovich and different ones that I forgot their names. They put Putin in power because after the Soviet Union broke down, they were afraid that the statists, the communists, would take over again and it would be government controlled. And to make a long story short, Putin saw that they were going to, and she told me the story and I researched it. What happened is they were funding the Chechnya rebels because everyone knows the real money is in war. That's where the real money is. What other product can you shoot one of them and it's like $1 million goes up in smoke? There's no better business than war. And of course, Dwight Eisenhower, the president, who was a general, 50 years ago, when he retired, he warned of the military industrial complex. It's a business. So Putin saw that, and then he banned them from the country. And she and her husband left with $9 billion. And they bought half of Star Island, which is the richest property in America. I guess it was the family money or something. But somehow or other, she had to leave her husband because he was so demoniac. And she had to leave, with her life being threatened. And the US government even offered her witness protection. And they wanted the information of his bank accounts. And they knew how dangerous these people are. She left with nothing, and she wound up with a shelter in the Bronx. And somehow wound up on the kirtan of Ram Roy every day. And had that realization that that was more than anything she ever had. It's the holy name, it's the holy name, it's the holy name. We just have to realize it and have faith in it. So he lives, and he's a great ruler. Now we're getting an image. This Brahman's going to explain. He had many temples of Krishna and Surya Alaya, of the Surya, of the temples of gods and demigods. And he's going to explain how he's not affected at all. So if you think I'm not affected, the Brahman's saying, because I'm the leader of the Brahmin community. What about someone who's Sarvabhauma? There's, I think it's mentioned here, there's the emperor. Chakravarti is the emperor. He's in charge of all the kings. And then there are some kings that are Sarvabhauma, Sarva, all Bhauma, the earth. They have a tremendous opulence and so much land, these Sarvabhauma. Just a little fact that I'm proud of. I saw in the news, and it caught me on TripAdvisor, the best hotel in the world. And it caught my attention because it looked Indian. And I looked at it, and wow, it's the Rambagh in Jaipur. And I said, wow, that's great. That's the hotel that I booked for my parents when they came to India. Of course, it wasn't fixed up to that degree, but still, when you went out in the front lawn for your morning breakfast and someone came with, a violin or whatever it is, some Indian instruments, and so they were kings, but he was Sarvabhauma. And now we'll see his qualities. Sarvato bhikshavo yatra tartika bhya daya krishnarpitanam bhunjana pramanti sukhana sada. Saintly mendicants come to his kingdom from all directions, along with pilgrims and other visitors. They wander happily, sustained by food that has been offered to Krishna. So this is when your house is open to Krishna, when you have that sense that it's not just for me, then somehow or other, Krishna facilitates. Now there's a big community. I see Henry say he was just up at the Super Soul Farm, And of course, those are people coming from, but there's a nice community upstate. And honestly, the way it started is Sachi Sutta and Kaylee. They invited me to come up, and they gave me the bedroom in their house. In other words, it seemed so obscure at that time. Upstate New York, it just seemed like another world. You know, who had become devotees? And then, you know, he renovated the barn and gave me a place to stay. And then he brought up Mother Kolini. He gave shelter, and then gave shelter to Raghunath, and then Rabindra Sarup, Satsarup Maharaj. And then, you know, before you know it, there's a flourishing community. And I see that it doesn't matter where someone is. If he makes his place available for Krishna and the devotees, somehow they come. So this kingdom then was attracting pilgrimage, visit the Tartika, the pilgrims, the Bhiksha, mendicants, the Abhyagata, and other visitors, Sarvataha, from everywhere they're coming. Just like Kirtananda Swami and Hayagriva, they got a place in West Virginia. Man, West Virginia. I remember going to a retreat in West Virginia with Jayadvaita Maharaj. And, you know, that's the place when you're, you know, from New York, we used to watch this movie, Easy Rider. You know, when we were young, you couldn't go to the South in America. You were afraid you'd get shot. So we stopped off on the way looking, and, you know, they've never seen people like us in the robes and shaved heads. When you're older, it looks okay. When you're a little younger, and then, you know, there's a glass thing in the gas station, you know, and it's almost a little scary. Jayadvaita Maharaj takes some books and you see him go into the thing and you see all these people looking at him, and he's like, by his spiritual Shakti, he has them all intimidated. But it was all, you know, all the way out, not even in a city in West Virginia, but Moundsville, West Virginia. But somehow or other, now it's a thriving community. And I remember when Kirtananda came to the Kumbh Mela in 1976, and then we would greet all the sannyasis that came. And we asked him, well, you know, how will you be successful there out? And he said, just like Prabhupada, he just chanted in Tompkins Square Park. So in a similar way, we'll chant in West Virginia. But anyway, everyone's coming because the king is in this high consciousness that this kingdom is not mine, that what I have is for God and others. And they're happy there because Brahmanti, they wander around, Sukhana, happy because Krishnarpita, which has been offered to Krishnarpita Anam, prasadam, offered to Krishna Anam, food, because Boonjanai, because they're eating the prasadam. I remember many, many years ago, I went to South India and there was a sannyasi, an Italian sannyasi. And he took me around and we went to this one temple. I don't know if you could have these same experiences these days when India was just so simple and the culture was so high. We went to this one temple. You went down to a cave, and then the cave turned into this beautiful temple, and there was a self-manifested Nrsingadev deity. And I remember to this day, there was this pushpana rice preparation, little granules of rock candy or something. It was just exploding. So you can imagine coming and taking the prasada, but understanding this is the best because it's love for Krishna and it's only the finest ingredients. So Narada Muni, the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta is trying to give us his lens. Purport, the Brahman describes the great king as Maharaj, a ruler of several other kings in his area. He was not the emperor of the entire continent, the Chakravarti. The higher position was occupied at the time by Pandava Yudhisthira. Later in this chapter, the southern king will also be called Sarvabhauma because his kingdom occupied a large area. Many accomplished saints migrated to his kingdom, attracted by its spiritual features. Other people also came, including ordinary visitors, renounced pilgrims traveling to purify themselves, and distressed persons in search of food and shelter. All of them took advantage of the sacred, delicious Krishna prasad freely available throughout the kingdom. Rajdhani samipe cha Sachit Ananda Vigraha Sakshat Ivaste Bhagavan Karunyat Stiratam Gata. Near this king's palace, the personality of God resides as if directly in his original form of eternal existence, knowledge, and bliss. He has kindly assumed the non-moving appearance. Purport, the Lord's incarnation as the deity in a temple is stationary, at least to ordinary eyes. He is the same absolute person who lives in the spiritual world, yet he assumes a special form to make himself visible to everyone. The Lord's pastimes incarnations, who are moving, display adventures with their devotees, are rarely seen in the cosmic manifestation. But the Vishnu deity in the king's capital was so potent and attractive that the citizens almost forgot he was a non-moving deity. They forgot because there's reciprocation with the deity. They're absorbed in the deity, and they're feeling the deity's presence. And not only they're feeling it, but everyone in the kingdom is feeling it. And then there's something real that's happening, and that's called devotion. Like Jaipur. It's amazing, Jaipur. Yeah, Jaipur is an amazing place where the king put the deity in the middle of the palace so he can take darshan from his room. And now you have 5,000 people in Mangal Arti. Anyway, Nityam Navanavas Tatra Jayati Paramotsava Puja Dravyani Cheshtani Nutanani Pratikshanam. In that kingdom, a joyous, ever-fresh festival is always being celebrated. At each moment, there are new offerings and performances of worship. Purport. The worship in the main temple of the capital never became stale and ritualistic. New items of worship were constantly introduced. And more important, the devotees' interest in pleasing the Lord was also ever fresh. Thus, the displays of worship pleased both the deities and the public. It's something about worshiping the deities. It's like, I think it's described, you could feel it like a mirror. You decorate the deities, you're decorating yourself. Not physically decorating it, but the pleasure that the deity feels in being offered something of beauty and substance. You'll feel that same consciousness within your own heart. So and new. It's described, it's like a water. You can't stand still on a water. You can only, if you're going against the current, you can either go forward or go backwards. Can't stay in the same place. So it's like that with devotion. You have to increase your devotion. Not necessarily the time, but maybe the quality of the ingredients, or it's offering the best. Devotion is offering the best. So you have to see how you offer and more beautiful things. And that's the nature of love. So this is the kingdom. It's, the Krishna-katha, it's really beautiful. The festivals they have, they spend $5,000-6,000 on flowers. And one thing, they fill the courtyard with water. And then there is when you fill the courtyard with water, there's an art whereby strings on the water, you can make mosaic designs with flowers. It's absolutely stunning. And it's just love. You walk in there, this is love for Krishna. So of course, the love is not dependent on the opulence, it's dependent on the devotion. But somehow or other, one will figure out a way to worship. So God is pleased and you're pleased. So the flowers are offered with love, but people and the deities experience the love for themselves in that display of devotion. But the public comes and sees the same thing and feels that same love, not for themselves, but for God. So Vishnur Neveditas tastai sarveta deshavasina vaideshikas chaba bhavo ojanti tena sadaram. The king respectfully feeds all the residents of his country and the many foreign visitors with the remnants of Lord Vishnu's worship. To accommodate all the residents and travelers, the king maintained many Vishnu temples throughout the country. And the main temple in the capital was especially famous for its worship and prasad. Yes, sometimes in India, different temples are famous for different types of prasadam that are being offered. And there it says there were many, many temples. The king maintained many, many temples. And that's the way it should be. I described here in Brick, New Jersey. I was in Jackson, New Jersey. In between them is Lakewood, where burgeoning Orthodox Jewish community with 200 synagogues, 100 yeshivas, including the second biggest one in the world with 5,500 students. So why do they have 200 synagogues? Because on the Sabbath, the Sabbath is for Sanga and family and God, and they know that technology ruins relationships. So there's no phones, there's no business, there's nothing. So, and the big activity is going to the synagogue to pray. So it has to be in walking distance. It has to be in walking. And I saw that yesterday. I went to Mikey Prame. He has a big house in Philadelphia. The second time I go there, we had a wonderful program with really nice prasadam. and really nice prasadam. And okay, a really nice, and we had a nice program. And on driving on the way back, I noticed across from his house was like a small Catholic church, and then 2 blocks later there was a big Catholic church. And it used to be like that in America, and maybe now in New Jersey you can see, especially with gas prices, how many people could drive into the city, New York City, and then try to find a parking space, and and who can afford going through the Holland Tunnel or the Verrazano Bridge and paying these huge tolls, and and it takes so much time. So it's nice that we have a little place here in South Jersey. It was a little closer to a few people. And on Tuesday, they can come for kirtan or something. And it's nice that there should be many temples. And hopefully, that'll be when Krishna consciousness really expands. I mean, the opulence of a farm community is that, or a spiritual community, is that you can walk to the temple. You can walk to the temple. Pundari kaksha devasya tasya darshana labhata mahapasada rupanadi upabhoga sukaptita sadhu shangata labhachcha nana deshat samagata ivasanti sada tatra santo Vishnu parayana. Saintly devotees of Lord Vishnu come from various countries to reside permanently in the kingdom. They come out of eagerness to see the lotus-eyed deity of the Lord, to relish the food and other spiritual remnants from the Lord, and to obtain the association of spiritually advanced persons. Purport. Besides pure devotees of Vishnu, other spiritualists came. Those dressed as holy men, but spiritually not fully qualified, were also treated with respect. Even cats and dogs should receive Lord Krishna's prasadam. But for spiritual guidance, one should approach only bona fide followers of the Vaishnava parampara. So we go to a holy place, not so much, and this Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta Prabhu told me, not so much that we can access the glories of that place, but because there are people there that can. I told you already that on July 10th, returning August 18th, I had a very strong inspiration that was confirmed in consultation with people I respect, that I should go to Vrindavan for the Purushottama Mas. But the real joy for me is the quality of devotees that I know, not everyone, that are there in Govardhan, and to get their Sanga. Sadhu Sanga, Sarva Shastri Hoy, Lavamatra, Sadhu Sanga. Lavamatra Sadhu Sanga, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. It's the perfection is Sadhu Sanga. Okay, we'll finish. I see Jamuna Jaya had to go teach her class. Oh, she's still here.
Absolutely, Raj.
Okay. I'm ending.
Thank you for class. Sorry, my mic kept popping on early. There's several things that I really just loved, but I loved your point about how Prabhupada had to come down to intellect to teach. That just really was wonderful, to come down to the place of intellect when he wasn't there. He was already above that. So I really love that point so much, that love is above the intellect.
It is. And you see through that when it's really pure. In other words, you're not, you're overwhelmed with emotion, and that becomes your lens. So the discriminatory thing that this is lower, this is higher, this is, but a madhyam has to make that distinction, and we have to make that distinction. We have to associate with those that are more advanced, make friends with those who are the same level, show compassion to the innocent, and avoid those who are envious. Okay. Well, have a good time teaching your class. Give my regards to Bryn.
I will, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for class.
Anybody else? Say hello. Gail?
Hi. Yeah, hi, Krishna Maharaj. Yeah, a couple of things, actually. One is, it occurred to me while just now when you were speaking that real opulence is when your life situation makes it easy to develop love for God. So, yeah, you always seem to kind of make that point, you know.
That what makes it easy?
When your situation, you know, that's the real definition of opulence, you know, having good facility for developing love for God, you know.
That doesn't mean opulence, though. I mean, that doesn't mean material opulence.
No, I'm saying spiritual.
Yeah. Spiritual, yeah. Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, Maharaj, you know, when you were saying that, you know, one's sense of, how should I say, one's sense of self-worth is like dependent on having somebody, you know, great, you know, love you.
Yeah.
You know, it made me think of, you know, what we kind of commonly hear, that we should have our own independent sense of self-worth. You know, like that's like the healthy mindset.
Right.
You know, to not depend on others.
Right.
For once. So how would you reconcile that with what you said in class?
Oh, let me repeat your question. That we should have our self-worth. Yeah, but our self-worth is in relationship to others.
I mean, there seems to be something like a little, you know, kind of flawed with.
We become independent. We have that self-worth. And we're not, because we have that self-worth, we're not dependent on the adoration and praise of others. So we have that self-worth. It does give us independence because I am loved by God. But the self-worth comes from being valued. But the value is by God and his love for us that we feel. That's what makes us valuable. It's like a ray of the sun. It has its own independence, but it's dependent on the sun. Without the sun, it doesn't exist. So our self-worth is in relationship to God. But once you have that, and you know you have that love, and you feel that love from God, then you feel self-worth.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Samantha, you have any question?
Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, hi Maharaj. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I don't really, well, I kind of have a question. I was just up at Super Soul Farm with Henry and Braja, and it was my first time there, and it was magical. I came home with the same feeling I felt like when I came back from India. And then I came in contact with the rest of society. And it's been a hard reintegration these last couple of days. So I guess I do have a question, not really related to what you were talking about, but you know, through nothing I did, I had two like nasty interactions. I just feel like sometimes the public can be a little nasty. And and I'm just trying to make my way here, and to have that equanimity and all of that. And
Krishna,
just wanted to.
Krishna has a strategy, which is called good cop and bad cop. So Super Soul was the good cop. But the tendency is if everything goes our way, then we tend to think we're the controllers and enjoyers, and we lose our sense of the soul. So the world is we're not the enjoyers, so we can't be the controllers, and it's good we're not, because that's the consciousness that won't actually help us. So we expect it. Prabhupada said this world is full of suffering. He said the devotees also suffer, but they can tolerate. And what is suffering? Just things don't go our way. And you have to learn, to be tolerant. Yesterday, I went to a program in Philadelphia. I was driven by Jeff Eisenberg. And he works in these schools where they send the kids where they can't be in any other schools. And he starts to stay in the hallway when he hears kids screaming. And sometimes he has to call 3 other people to hold a kid down. They have different techniques. So all day long, he has to deal. He said sometimes a kid may spit in his face and he can't react. You know what I'm saying? So he's telling me how by that, it's really, he's learning, to control his mind. And so it's the same thing. Whatever comes by God, coming by God it comes to us, it's for us. So we just have to give up the idea that we ever can be the controller and enjoyer. And Samantha, I don't know, but if you're free on I think it's the 7th of July, we're having a retreat in upstate New York in a beautiful retreat center.
I'll check it out. Thank you. Enjoy the program today. I wish I could make it. Thank you.
Okay, Haribo. That's your son. Hello.
That's my son. That's my Rocco. I have a Rocco too.
Oh, really?
Rocco. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Haribo. Thank you, Samantha, for coming.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo. Bhakti Devi.
I just want to say, here I am in the steak and barbecue capital of the world. And I was amazed at how many temples are here. There are so many temples here in Texas. And Ralph and I have been doing a little bit of temple hopping.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's so nice to have a temple that you can just drive your car into. There's plenty of parking.
You're at the Sadhu Sanga retreat.
Yes.
Okay. Well, still, even though you're in the midst of the land of nectar, you still come to my class in the morning. Great.
That's because I love you so much, Maharaj.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Devi. Okay, Haribo. Great. Anybody else say hello? Isabel, you down there too?
Yes, I'm down here too. I'm not temple hopping, but I'm hopping a lot. I'm in pain now.
Okay, well, don't overdo it.
Yeah, I went to the Dallas temple and we got a tour from Nityananda, temple president. We were with Sri Rupa, and we got to go into Prabhupada's room and Tamal Krishna's room also. Saw a picture of you.
That's where I joined Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, I saw a picture of you up there. I took a picture of the picture. When
I
you're
know
really
that
young.
Sitting with Prabhupada in his room, right?
Yeah, there's a picture of you where you're all standing and you're all the way to the right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's another picture. Okay.
Yeah, very sweet. Beautiful temple.
Okay. Haribo.
Haribo.
Good morning, Maharaj.
Hey. Haribo.
Thanks. You've made me want to go to Vrindavan again, listening, which I have a ticket for. I'll call you later today because we have some things to talk.
Great. What time about? Because I know.
Oh, you tell me. I'm very free today. Yesterday I went to the Springs with Hari Cage, so I wasn't free, but it was a nice day off.
Well, it's great. It's great. You want to speak in just right after this?
Give me about 15 minutes.
How about 9:30?
It's a deal. 9:30 is perfect for me. I'll call you.
Thank you for coming to the class.
I enjoy it. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dr. Gopinath here.
Kishori Radha Priya.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Great to see you there, Kishori and Radha at the program. It has a little charm there, doesn't it? The program.
I love that house. Yeah, it's really enchanting. It's cute.
Enchanting. Did you see those bikers across the street when you went out?
I did. Yes.
It's an incredible. You know, those in Philadelphia, they still have. I mean, those houses may be like 300-400 years old or something. They still have those. Stone, you know, those stone foundations. Yeah.
Yeah. Great class yesterday about canning. We had a nice discussion on the way home talking about it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. We'll see you tonight. Priya and I are coming tonight.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Lal and Braja, Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thanks for class.
Okay. Good.
Good to see you later.
Oh, great. We're going to have a nice shindig is not the word, but it's going to be a Jersey gathering on. I've never been to Long Beach Island.
Yeah. It's
a beach town, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boardwalk.
No, it's more of just the strip.
A strip.
Yeah, it's basically pretty much a 2-lane road from one end of the island to the other. But
it's not too exciting.
It sounds ecstatic. Where was Prabhupada stay? Where was that?
Long Branch.
That's Long Branch.
Yeah. So that's a little bit.
That's like 30 minutes north of where you are now, by Asbury Park, kind of.
Okay. Somehow Prabhupada sacrificed his life and came to New Jersey.
It's working out for you, though.
What?
It's working out for you, no?
You got me there. I know. When I was with Jeff, I told him I think Jersey's the best place. But I did make my Philadelphia joke when I was in Philadelphia.
What was that?
Well, I described that the most famous comedian probably was W.C. Fields, way back. Uh-huh. And he was born in Philadelphia and he died in Washington. And then they had in his will the epitaph for his tombstone. Uh-huh. In the cemetery in Washington, it says, "At least it ain't Philadelphia." So I get anyone who's west of the Hudson River, you know, and close to New York, because that's our culture.
Yeah.
Okay, Haribo.
Haribo.
Okay, anybody else? Say hello.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
And Gopa. Hey, and Ram Sadowski. Haribo, Ram. He really likes to hear Krishna-katha, doesn't he?
He does, and he loves books about Krishna every day.
Okay. Yeah, I could tell people yesterday that in the class, these people came up to me and they said, "You remember me?" And they remember me from this community in Russia where they heard that I used to play soccer. So they rented this small field that has a high fence. So you kick the ball and it stays in. And they asked me if I would come play with them. So the whole community, I mean, there were kids that were 10 up to old people. And they saw I played a whole game. I was 65 at the time, and I was still one of the best players. And the sannyasi, was playing with them. So they remembered me from that. But then I'm saying, what do you do here? He said, I used to be a lieutenant in the army, but because of the war, I didn't want to go to the war. And I asked my guru, he said, get out. So I was just so shocked that he was Russian and he came through Mexico. So I said, what? But it's nice if you keep in contact. They seem like very nice people. If you can invite them to your house, that'll be great.
I already got their phone number. They want to come to the program in June.
Okay. I think I may invite Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta Swami. So that'll be fun. Okay. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
I have Narmasaki. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Thank you so much. Wonderful class, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you. Who else?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yavat Sundari.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the class.
I love that little community that's developing there, and all the nice activities.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for your kind reply, Maharaj. That was very good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Okay, that's Amala. Good. You're making everything. Yes. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Somehow by this Zoom, we get all over the world. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Wow, we're going from Tel Aviv to Moscow to the Middle East. Have you got your ticket for?
Not yet. I have to talk with my boss and then decide when I can come to India.
Okay, and then you have to find a place to stay, and you'll do that. There's many Russians that help you. Okay. Okay, anybody else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Himalata Radha.
Now we're going all the way down to Mar del Plata in Argentina.
Yes. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much for class.
Okay. Can't wait to all get together there in Bṛhad. You know who I met who's also going to that? That lady, Cindy, that was in your conference.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she's also going to do that too. Yeah.
You met her in Super Soul Farm?
Yeah. Your friend Krishna Lila doesn't want to stay later? She can't, or?
Well, she wanted to stay, but she didn't want to wait to buy her flight tickets. So because they were getting too expensive, so she bought it and she's staying only for a month.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I see all the list and thank you all for coming. Great. I'm going to go. Why don't you go?